What's going on? This is your man, John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show. And today's show, I'm going to focus on the top 10 players the Washington Redskins gave up on too early. Now, I've seen a lot of posts in which people talk about and how many times the Redskins have given up on players prior and them go somewhere else and be absolutely stellar somewhere else. So I actually wanted to focus a top 10 list on players that we gave up on too early and ended up doing more once they left here, or becoming stars, or even still having stellar careers after they left us. So I'm going to go ahead and break down the top 10 players the Washington Redskins gave up on too early. I'm going to start off with my notables. My first notable is Sean Sweezum. Now, we all know the kicking problems that the Redskins have had during the years here, and this is one of the guys that we actually gave up on. During his time in Pittsburgh, he had 141 attempts, 124 makes, and 578 points, which gives him about a 88% 88 make percentage, which means that he's 80% of the time he's going to make these kicks. The crazy thing about that is that in his final season with the Redskins, he made 26 of 36 kicks, which give him about a 72% average, 177 points, and he did not miss an extra point. So we just sat up here and let this guy go way too early on. My next guy is Sean Barber. Now, he was a part of the young linebackers that we had drafted around 96 or 97, something like that, 95, 96, 97. And the other guy that was drafted, some of the other guys that was drafted with him, one was LeVar Arrington. The other guy's actually on the list, so I'm not going to tell you who he is until I get into the list. But Sean Barber was also another one of these young guys that we drafted, and was actually pretty stellar for us. I mean, in his final season with us, Sean Barber had 63 tackles, 2 sacks, and 3 fumble recoveries. And it just seemed like that we gave up on this guy way too early. After he left us, he had 292 tackles, 7 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, and 1 touchdown. And, I mean, this was one of these guys. He went to Kansas City and was beasting out in Kansas City. And next thing you know, it was just we never recovered from some of these young linebackers that we drafted. So now I'm going to get into my top 10 list. Now, again, like I said, a lot of these players you guys may not necessarily agree upon, but these are guys that I felt needed the most recognition when it came to players that we actually gave up on too early, and that they went on and actually continued their career, or they had better careers after they left us. So at number 10, I have Brian Mitchell. Now, I know a lot of y'all are like, well, John, wait a minute. Brian Mitchell, we had him for 10 years. Yeah, we did. But Brian Mitchell, after his 10 years with us, he had 4 more productive years after that. And not only did he have 4 more productive years after that, he had 4 more incredibly productive years after that, especially for the guys that was here that we used to replace Brian Mitchell. Brian Mitchell had way more productive years for us. So just to give you an idea of what happened, Brian Mitchell in his final season with us had 1,755 return yards for us. He didn't have any touchdowns, but that's a lot of yardage for a guy that, especially through 16 games. He was actually doing really well for us. The year before that, Brian Mitchell had 2,357 return yards and a touchdown. So Brian Mitchell was actually super stellar for us during that time. Fan Snyder sat up there and got involved and released Brian Mitchell when Brian Mitchell was still productive. After Brian Mitchell left us, Brian Mitchell goes to our rivals in Philadelphia and he also played for the Giants for 1 year. During his time away from us, Brian Mitchell had 6,424 return yards for Philadelphia and the Giants. And on top of that, he had 4 touchdowns, 2 on punt returns and 2 on kickoff returns. Now, understand this. Brian Mitchell at that time was averaging about maybe 1,500 return yards per season with Philadelphia and the Giants. Whereas the guys that we had replace him was only averaging about 700 to 800 yards per season for us. So right then and there, we made a blunderous mistake. No, I'm sorry, we didn't. Fan Snyder made a blunderous mistake in not bringing Brian Mitchell back. And it was so sad because Brian Mitchell was everything to us. I mean, he was the toughness of the team. He was a guy that was going to get the extra yardage for us. We never had to worry because we knew that if Brian Mitchell was returning the kicks and returning the punts and everything, he was going to get us a big chunk of yardage. And if we gave up on this, we let this guy walk away from us way too early. At number 9, I have Graham Gano. Now, I know that in my notables, I had a kicker before then, but Graham Gano was one of these young kickers that I felt that we set up there and didn't give him the right opportunity to really be what he was going to be and actually what he became in Carolina. Because in Graham Gano's final season with us, he made 31 of 41 kicks, and he had 118 points for us. And the crazy thing about that is that since he's been gone away from us, he's had 193 attempts. He's made 165 field goals, and he's had 742 points. Now, the crazy thing about that is that the guys that we got to replace him, and Kyle Forbath and Dustin Hopkins, Kyle Forbath only got 271 points, and Dustin Hopkins has only 415 points. So altogether, that's only 686 points, which means that there's still 56 points off the pace that Graham Gano has set in Carolina. Not only that, Graham Gano also appeared in the Super Bowl. So we gave up on this guy way too early on. He's another one that we gave up on way too early, and we didn't give him a chance to actually develop into the kicker that he's become now. At number 8, and I might also add that Graham Gano has also appeared in 2 Pro Bowls since then. So that's all I had to say. At number 8, I have Stan Humphries. Now, this is to me where the blunder at quarterback started for the Redskins, because I think during our time with Joe Gibbs gave us like a false sense of security on we can just have any quarterback come in here and win for us, because it's hard to have a fan base believe you can't win with any quarterback when you've won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different guys. But with that being said, this was one that really kind of made it look bad because again, Joe Gibbs had gone, Bobby Beathard was now in San Diego, and Stan Humphries was in San Diego with him. And this was like the early free agency and all that. So this was one that was really bad, because even though Stan Humphries wasn't like a stellar quarterback after that, but he was what San Diego needed at that time. But he was also something that the Redskins needed at that time too, because Mark Rippon in his final year with us was just awful. Mark Rippon's final year with us, I think he had thrown for maybe 4 touchdowns and had like 10 interceptions or something crazy like that. And I remember we ended up replacing him with, I think it was San Diego's former quarterback, John Freeze at the time, and it was just an absolute disaster. Stan Humphries ended up marching San Diego all the way through the playoffs and into the Super Bowl, and damn near won the Super Bowl against, I can't remember who they, I think I can't remember who they almost won it against, but They almost did it, and it was just the most demoralizing thing you could ever see, because after that we never had quality quarterbacks that have come in and really done anything for us after this particular situation. At number 7, I have Keenan McCardell. Now, I put Keenan McCardell on here because this is a great example of a guy we didn't even give an actual chance to. Like, when I tell you we didn't give Keenan McCardell a chance, we released him after his rookie year. After his rookie year, we released this guy. Not only that, a lot of y'all may not know this, we drafted him the same year we drafted Desmond Howard. And the crazy thing about that is that Keenan McCardell, after we released him, went to the Cleveland Browns. Now, this is going to piss a lot of you guys off. Guess who was the head coach in Cleveland when we released Keenan McCardell? It was Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick picks up Keenan McCardell, brings him to Cleveland so he can develop Keenan McCardell into what he became. Now, I sit up here and I say this is because we know Bill Belichick has the reputation of developing guys that nobody else has seen. Julian Edelman is an example of that. Tom Brady. There's so many guys that we can go on and on and on about guys that he basically developed during his time. And when you think about this guy, he's another one of those grouping of guys. Keenan McCardell, he became a Pro Bowl wide receiver, damn near a Hall of Fame wide receiver. And it was just amazing what this guy did in Jacksonville. During his time, he had 11,117 yards, 62 touchdowns. He had 1,382 receptions and 2 Pro Bowl appearances. The ironic thing about that is that when he went to Jacksonville, guess who else was in Jacksonville as a kick returner? Desmond Howard. We sat up there and wasted all that time trying to develop Desmond Howard, and he ended up becoming a kick returner, but yet still, he ended up on that same Jacksonville team with Keenan McCardell being the number 1 wide receiver on that Jacksonville team, and that's what ended up happening with us with Keenan McCardell. At number 6 is the other young linebacker that I talked about that we drafted around 95, 96, 97, along with LeVar Arrington and Sean Barber, is Derek Smith. Now, some of y'all may not remember Derek Smith, but I remember Derek Smith very vividly because he came in and we were not expecting for him to be the stellar linebacker that he became. And the crazy thing about that was that this was another young guy we let walk away from us way too early. We gave up on him way too early, and it's after he had a stellar season with us. Derek Smith in his final year with us had 88 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery. Of those 88 tackles he had, 71 were solo tackles. So he was not letting anything get past him. We sat up here and, like I said, it was Sean Barber, LeVar Arrington, and Derek Smith were these young linebackers that we were going to have for years and years and years, and we just let Sean Barber and Derek Smith just completely walk away. When Derek Smith left us and went to San Francisco, he racked up 710 tackles, 9 sacks, 3 interceptions, 8 fumble recoveries, and 3 forced fumbles. That's terrible when it comes to letting a guy walk away way too soon, way too early, even when he was still young. And we really jacked up on that one. At number 5, I have Lorenzo Alexander. Now, I know a lot of you guys may say, Lorenzo Alexander, John, I don't know. He may be a little high. I'm going to tell you why I got Lorenzo Alexander this high. I remember at Redskins training camp when the guy showed up, and I remember he was wearing like a jersey that seemed like he bought it at like a Walmart or something like that. And he came out there and, he went out there and he just did a trial for the Redskins. The Redskins end up signing this guy, And damn it if he didn't become what we now consider him, the one-man game. I mean, he was playing on special teams. He played on defense. And there were times on goal line stances and things like that. He would come in and play offensive line for us. Lorenzo Alexander did everything he could for us to do to keep him around. And yet and still, we did not even think, even at the slightest of moments, that this guy could have been what he ended up becoming when he went somewhere else. And the sad part about all this is that we gave up too soon on this guy, and we really didn't give this guy a serious opportunity, because there were times where he came in. If I can remember, I remember there were a couple games where he came in and replaced London Fletcher at middle linebacker and did a stellar job at it. And yet and still, it's not until he goes somewhere else that all of a sudden he becomes the guy he became with other teams that we already knew we had here. Like, I'll give you some of his breakdown. In his final season with us, Lorenzo Alexander had 46 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and he made his first Pro Bowl appearance in his final season with us. After he's been gone from us, he has 226 tackles, 23 sacks, 8 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, and 3 interceptions, and he made a second Pro Bowl appearance. We sat up here and, well, I'm not gonna say we. I apologize for that. Fan Snyder sat up there and let this guy walk away when we knew what we were getting with Lorenzo Alexander. And I remember when he was gone, and how the whole city was mad at the fact that Lorenzo Alexander was no longer going to be a Washington Redskin, including Brian Mitchell. Brian Mitchell was so pissed off about it that they actually had him on TV one time where he cussed about it. So that was like a blunder of blunders. At number 4, I have Stephen Davis. Stephen Davis was a running back that we had developed. And he was actually coming on, had 3 straight seasons with us for 1,000 yards. And after his final season with us, he had 270 carries, he had 270 carries, 820 yards, 7 touchdowns, and he was stellar for us. The crazy thing about that is that they tried. I mean, understand, this was his down year with us because they were trying to acclimate him to that stupid Steve Spurrier offense. And it's also one of those things that where you saw the difference between Marty Schottenheimer's offense and Steve Spurrier's offense. And it just ruined Stephen Davis's time and career here with us. After he left us, Stephen Davis ended up gaining 2,262 yards, 20 touchdowns, 326 receiving yards, and he still had a 4.0 yard per carry average. So again, this is another guy who walked away from us because we didn't see his value. Well, his value wasn't seen by the team, and you also brought in a coach who wasn't qualified enough to sit up there and run an NFL offense that we had to let a solid running back walk away from us. And guess what? He also made a Super Bowl appearance. They made the Super Bowl his second year in Carolina. So it was a disaster for us. At number 3, I have Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce, again, was another one of these young linebackers that we drafted, that we brought along, that was going to be great for us, and that we let walk away and replaced them with an old, outdated linebacker. Antonio Pierce, his final season with us, he had 112 tackles, 1 sack, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, and 2 fumble recoveries. After he left us and he played all those years with the Giants, he had 489 tackles, 7 sacks, 4 interceptions, 6 fumble recoveries, 6 forced fumbles, 7 fumble recoveries, and 1 touchdown. And he appeared, and he got a Super Bowl championship with the Giants as well. Again, this is a guy that was given up, that set up there. We brought in his replacement, which was Michael Burrow, which was the former Giants linebacker, and the Giants took Antonio Pierce. Crazy part about that was that we gave Michael Burrow more money than what Antonio Pierce was asking for, and yet and still, guess what we got? Nothing, because Michael Burrow didn't play us dang down for us. At number 2, I have Ryan Clark. Now, Ryan Clark formed what would have been the best safety tandem for us with him and Sean Taylor. He was the calming guy for Sean Taylor during the time Sean Taylor was here. And we saw what we were getting in Ryan Clark. And we were just like, oh, this is good for us. Then we let him walk away. And in his final season with us, Ryan Clark had 57 tackles, a half a sack. And again, it was him and Sean Taylor who had formed what was basically the most fearsome safety duo in the league, because Ryan Clark was hitting, Sean Taylor was hitting. We just knew we were going to have something for a long time. But he goes to Pittsburgh. When he was in Pittsburgh, he ended up forming a stellar tandem with Troy Polamalu. What we could have had in Ryan Clark here with Sean Taylor, because that was another thing. Ryan Clark had 666 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 6 fumble recoveries, and 12 interceptions. And he also won a Super Bowl championship with the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. So, again, this was a guy that we just did not see what we had when he was here. Now, my number one guy, I kind of was struggling between him and Ryan Clark, between who was going to be 1 and who was going to be 2. But I felt that because of what our quarterback issues that we've always had here, and not only that, this was the first open door where we found out that Dan Snyder was the blunder hound. Like, he was just going to make mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And this was his first major mistake as owner of the Redskins. At number 1, I have Trent Green. Now, a lot of y'all can remember, Trent Green ended up being our quarterback when I think it was we had gave up on Gus Farrat, we gave up on Heath Schuler, and Trent Green came in there, and Trent Green actually did something for us that we were not expecting. He came in and he was playing very well for us. And I remember, I think the year that we had Trent basically start the whole season, he had 3,441 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions for us. And we were so happy because we were like, this was our third down. This was our third quarterback. And we actually found our starter for a long time. Nope. What happened? Dan Snyder buys the team, didn't even offer Trent a damn contract. And then all of a sudden Trent goes to St. Louis. And yeah, he got hurt his first year, but he was going to be the original quarterback for the greatest show on turf. It wasn't going to be Kurt Warner. It was going to be Trent Green. But Trent ended up going to Kansas City the following year and ended up having a stellar career in Kansas City. I mean, Trent Green had 21,459 yards, 118 touchdowns, 85 interceptions. And like I said, again, this was Fan Snyder's first major blunder after buying the team. He did not even offer Trent a contract. Didn't even talk to Trent. None of that. He did nothing to try his best to make Trent stay. And this was one that I tell everybody, like I said, it was hard for me between Ryan Clark and Trent Green, but with all the quarterback issues we've had, and you talking about this guy had 21,000 something yards, this would have been perfect for us during that time that we were trying to find quarterbacks. And I mean, it was just a complete disaster of a thing. But these are my top 10 players that the Redskins gave up on too early. I want you guys to tell me if there are other players that you would have put on this list, or if you would have rearranged this list somehow, some way. Also, I want you guys to like, subscribe, and comment on my videos, because I really want to see what you guys think of this. Because to me, I felt these top 10 guys were the guys that were really deserving of being on this list. But hey, let me know what y'all think. This is your man, John Fortune, and this is the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.